He could barely finish his first match in Melbourne, and now he's standing alone at the top of Canadian tennis history. That's not hype. That's not exaggeration. That's Felix Auger-Aliassime rewriting the record books just weeks after one of the most frustrating moments of his career. Because when Felix limped off court at the Australian Open, cramping, disappointed, and forced to retire, the question started immediately. Was his body holding him back again? Was the pressure of expectations catching up to him? Was this another chapter in the story of talent without the titles to match? Fast forward to Montpellier, and suddenly the narrative flipped. Felix didn't just win. He dominated the week with the kind of clean, controlled, confident tennis that reminds everyone why so many people have believed in him since he was a teenager. And the trophy he lifted there? That one meant more than it looked. Because with that victory, Felix Auger-Aliassime officially became the most successful Canadian man of the Open era in terms of ATP Tour titles. 9 titles. More than Milos Raonic. More than any Canadian man before him. Let that sink in for a second. For years, Raonic was a standard. Wimbledon finalist. World number 3. The face of Canadian men's tennis. If you talk about Canadian success on the ATP Tour, his name came up first every time. Now it's Felix. And what makes this even more dramatic is how quickly things turned around. The Australian Open was supposed to be a major statement for Felix. He came in with quiet confidence, talking about building momentum, about feeling physically stronger, about being ready to push deeper at slams. Instead, his campaign lasted one painful match that ended with cramp forcing him out. That kind of loss can mess with a player mentally, especially someone like Felix, who has carried the weight of expectations for almost a decade. Every setback gets magnified. Every injury sparks debate. Every early exit becomes a talking point. But Montpellier told a different story. From the first round, there was a noticeable calm in his game. The serve was precise. The forehand had that heavy, penetrating shape again. The movement looked lighter. More importantly, the decision-making was sharp. He wasn't overhitting. He wasn't rushing. He was constructing points like a veteran who knew exactly when to pull the trigger. By the time he reached the final against Adrian Mannarino, Felix looked like the clear favorite not just on paper, but in presence. Mannarino is one of the trickiest players on tour. Flat shots, weird timing, awkward pace. He drags opponents into uncomfortable rallies and frustrates them into mistakes. But Felix didn't get dragged into chaos. He imposed structure. He took the first set 6-3 by staying aggressive on return and protecting his own serve with authority. The second set tightened, as it often does in indoor finals, and it went to a tiebreak. That's where we've sometimes seen Felix wobble in the past. Not this time. He played the big points with clarity, trusted his first serve, and closed it out in straight sets. No drama. No panic. Just a professional finish. That moment, racket raise, small smile, almost a look of relief more than explosion. That was a moment Canadian tennis history quietly shifted. Because title number 9 pushed him past Raonic's total of 8. Records aren't everything in tennis, but this one carries emotional weight. Raonic represented the first wave of modern Canadian success. He proved a Canadian man could be a consistent threat on the ATP Tour, could go deep at slams, could serve his way into the elite. Felix represents the next evolution. More complete baseline game, more athletic range, more versatility across surfaces. And now, officially more titles. There's something symbolic about the timing, too. Raonic stepping away from the sport earlier this year. Felix stepping forward into the statistical lead. It feels like a passing of the torch, even if it wasn't said out loud. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Montpellier wasn't just a sentimental milestone. It might be the start of a serious ranking surge. Felix didn't defend many points in Rotterdam last year because of an early loss, which means this week is pure opportunity. He's seeded second, and with Carlos Alcaraz out of the draw, the path just opened up in a big way. That doesn't guarantee anything, of course. Indoor hard courts are brutal. One bad service game, one hot opponent, and you're out. But if Felix carries even 80% of his Montpellier level into Rotterdam, he suddenly becomes one of the favorites. And if he wins there, we're talking about a potential move toward world number 5. Think about that arc for a second. From retiring injured at the first slam of the year to possibly sitting inside the top 5 within a month. That's the kind of swing that changes how the locker room sees you. Because players notice form. They notice confidence. They notice when someone's ball starts coming through heavier and cleaner. Felix at his best is not someone top seeds want to see across the net indoors. We've actually seen this movie before with him in Rotterdam. That's where he won his first ATP title, beating Stefanos Tsitsipas in the final. That breakthrough moment was supposed to be the beginning of a flood of titles. Instead, his career has been more of a roller coaster. Brilliant weeks, tough slumps, injuries, coaching adjustments, technical tweaks, constant conversations about unlocking consistency. That's why this current run feels different. It's not just about one title. It's about the way he won it and the timing after a setback. It sends a message that he's not mentally fragile after disappointments. If anything, he looks more focused when he has something to prove. And let's talk about his title resume for a minute, because it quietly shows a pattern people don't always acknowledge. Felix has now won titles across multiple seasons in different indoor events, including Rotterdam, Antwerp, Basel, and now multiple in Montpellier. That's not a fluke run. That's a player who understands how to dominate specific conditions. Indoor hard courts reward first-strike tennis, strong serving, and clean ball striking. When Felix's timing is on, he checks every one of those boxes. The serve sets up short balls. The forehand does damage. The backhand stays solid enough to redirect pace. Suddenly, opponents are always reacting. The question has never been his ceiling. It's been how often he can live near it. That's why Rotterdam is such a fascinating test. Early rounds can be tricky. He opens against Alexei Popyrin, a dangerous shot maker who can redline for a set or two. That's not a walk-on court and win match. It demands focus immediately. If he gets through that, the draw could open up nicely. And with confidence from Montpellier still fresh, this is exactly the type of stretch where Felix has historically gone on runs. But beyond rankings and draws, there's something else happening here. Identity. For a long time, Felix was labeled as potential, future star, next big thing. That label sticks to you, and it can become heavy. Every loss feels like a failure to live up to a promise made when you were 17. Now he's entering a different phase. Mid-20s, multiple titles, a national record. This is where potential slowly turns into established contender. And let's be real, Canadian tennis as a whole is in a fascinating era. On the women's side, they had slam champions and deep runs. On the men's side, you had Raonic's era, Denis Shapovalov's flashes, and now Felix stepping into statistical leadership. Being the guy with the most titles from your country carries responsibility. Younger players look at you differently. Media questions change. Expectations rise again. But this time, Felix looks more comfortable wearing that weight. Even his social media message after the win felt relaxed. A simple note about going back-to-back, a thank you to Montpellier, a promise to return. Not over the top, not defensive, just satisfied. That kind of tone often comes from inner belief rather than external pressure. Of course, we have to keep perspective. This wasn't a slam. It wasn't a Masters 1000. The very top of the sport is still ruled by names who have stacked up major titles and huge finals. But careers are built in layers. You don't jump from struggling with injuries straight to lifting a grand slam. You build confidence. You build match toughness. You build weeks where you handle the pressure of being the favorite. Montpellier was one of those weeks. And the record? That's a milestone he'll carry forever. Years from now, when people look at Canadian tennis history, they'll see Felix Auger-Aliassime at the top of the men's title list and remember this stretch as the moment he moved from chasing history to owning a piece of it. The big question now is how far this momentum goes. Does this spark his best season yet? Does he translate indoor success to bigger outdoor events? Can he finally make that deep slam run that has just been out of reach? Those answers don't come from one trophy. But sometimes one trophy flips the mental switch that makes the next leap possible. And that's why this story matters more than just another tournament result. It's about resilience after disappointment. It's about living up to early promise on your own timeline, not the internet's. It's about a national record that symbolizes growth, not just numbers. Felix didn't shout when he broke the record. He didn't make a dramatic speech about history. He just won matches, lifted the trophy, and moved on to the next city. That quiet confidence might be the most dangerous version of him yet. So now I want to hear from you. Is Felix finally entering his true prime? Or do you think the real test is still ahead at the slams? And how many titles do you see him finishing his career with if he stays healthy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this next stretch could define the rest of his career. And if you love deep dives into the stories shaping the tennis world, stick with Tennis IQ, where we don't just follow the tour, we break down the moments that change it.